If you've ever seen a pool table, you've probably seen chalk. Maybe you've even seen this.
And maybe you wanted to play a friendly game of pool.
And when you picked up the cue, you put chalk on it. Because everybody else is doing it, you know? It's what you're supposed to do. And maybe you thought to yourself, why am I even doing this? Does this even do anything? Besides getting on your clothes? Yes!
Chalk is insanely important in the game of pool, yet it often goes completely unnoticed. It's the unsung hero, kind of like that quote from Futurama.
When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all.
Yep, that's chalk. All of the work, none of the glory.
But what does chalk even do?
Chalk gives the tip of the cue grip.
Well, I guess there's the answer. That's the end of the video. Wait, the video's not over. There's more. Jesus Christ, is this an infomercial? But why is grip on the cue important if you're just using it to hit the cue ball? Like, you're just hitting it. You don't need grip.
Wrong. When you're shooting pool, you're not just trying to make the ball, you're trying to control where the cue ball goes next.
And this is where chalk and grip really shine. Or should I say smudges? See, a cue ball is a ball. It's in its name.
At the cue ball center, the surface is completely vertical. So if you hit center, all that sweet, sweet horizontal force goes directly into the ball. No grip necessary.
Psst, but you don't need to hit the center of the cue ball. And in most cases, it's better to not hit the center of the cue ball. Now, for most pool players, this is common knowledge, but I didn't know this when I first started learning. So when I learned that you could hit away from the center of the cue ball, it blew my mind.
Yes, I am a simple man.
But remember how we also need to control where the cue ball goes next?
The way you can change how the cue ball moves is by hitting the cue ball away from the center of the cue ball. This adds spin to the cue ball, or as pool players call it, English. I got another video about pool's history if you want to learn how they coined the term English, as well as other pool history facts. Alright, now back to chalk. As you move away from the center of the cue ball by shifting your cue up, down, left, or right, you then have less and less vertical surface area to hit the cue ball as it rounds out. So without chalk or grip, the cue would just glance off the side of the cue ball. Even if you were just slightly off center, you wouldn't be able to control the cue ball, let alone even hit the ball you're aiming at. So with chalk, now you can hit the edges of the cue ball, which makes the cue ball spin and do a lot of crazy things. Yep, thanks to the spin from chalk, you can do a 5-rail kick. And it's what helps you get perfect position on your next shot. In short, chalk is necessary to control the cue ball.
Don't believe me?
One easy way to test this is to put tape on the tip of your cue. This removes all grip or friction. Even just the slightest deviation from center, and your cue glances off the cue ball. To contrast, here's max low outside with the chalked cue. Now that's what I call perfect position. Okay, I overhit it just a little bit, but I still made the 8. So now you know the important role chalk plays in pool. It's not something you just put on your cue because other people are doing it. It's actually very useful because chalk allows you to hit the edges of the cue ball. That way you can apply correct spin to the ball while simultaneously making the cue ball go where you're aiming, so you can make your ball. You get position on your next shot, and hopefully you win the game.
But chalk in all its glory only helps to a certain extent.
As mentioned on my previous shot, there is a max limit.
When you try and hit too far to one side or edge of the cue ball, you experience a pool player's worst nightmare.
The miscue. Which is when the cue glances off the side of the cue ball. Ugh. Not only can you miscue by not using chalk, as previously mentioned, but you can also miscue by trying to add too much spin or English. As a pool player, you hate to miscue because it means you missed, you likely gave your opponent ball in hand, and you look like an idiot.
Which can make pool players scared to use too much English.
But here's the thing. Chalk works insanely well with the Q-tip, which is rounded.
And this is where things get even more interesting. Let's look at a cue hitting the edge of the cue ball.
Did you see where the cue made contact with the ball? Let's see that again. The tip of the cue is rounded, so as you hit the cue ball away from center, the cue tip conforms to the rounded edge of the cue ball, providing more surface area for you to hit the ball. It's not the center of the cue tip that hits the ball. It's not the outside edge. It's the inside edge of the tip of the cue. Okay, but why is that important? Most people view the outside edge of the cue's tip as the aiming point.
And think that the cue is so far to one side that there's no way you can shoot without miscuing.
However, the point of the cue's tip you want to focus on is the inside. Focusing on the inside of the cue's tip when aiming will give you the confidence you need to effectively apply max English and get the results you need, whether that's crazy side spin or a power drop. But how do you know how much is max English? Before I get into that, I want to give a quick thank you to Surge Billiards for letting me film in their awesome location. If you ever happen to be in Chicago and you're looking for a fun time, check out Surge Billiards for pool, chalk, drinks, more chalk, fun, but most importantly, chalk. My God, that's a lot of chalk. And now back to calculating max English. Pool players will use the cue tip radius to measure how much English to add to the ball. One tip is shifting the cue over. That's right, a half a tip. I mean, duh, who doesn't know that a full tip is a half tip? And the maximum amount of English you can apply to a cue ball is 3 tips of English to one side. Or is it 1.5 tips? Because they're really just half tips. The math ain't mathin'. 3 tips. So if you aim low on the cue ball to draw the ball, you aren't going to scoop the cue ball because you're hitting under the ball. The top of the cue is making contact with the bottom half of the ball, and the chalk is gripping it so the cue doesn't slip. You aren't going to miscue or scoop the ball unless you go really low. Okay, but what does adding English even do? Again, English allows you to get perfect position on your next shot, which is only possible thanks to chalk.
Okay, chalk adds grip. We've already established that. Is that all chalk does?
Did you make a video just to tell me chalk adds grip?
There's a lot more that goes into chalk.
When you hit the ball, the chalk actually sprays off the cue tip in a little dust plume. This chalk dust then gets into the cloth, while seemingly negligible at first, can actually slow down the playing surface after enough time. However, more importantly, hitting a cue ball with a chalked cue leaves a smudge on the cue ball. But why is that a problem? If a smudge happens to be at the contact point between the object ball and the cue ball, however unlikely it may seem, it causes either the object ball, the cue ball, or both to not go where you thought they were going to go. In this example, we are shooting at the 5 ball, and when a cue ball and an object ball make contact, the direction of travel is perpendicular to the contact point. This is the path we expect. However, if chalk were to get in the way, the 5 ball actually doesn't cut as much as expected, and you miss. Thanks a lot, chalk. This phenomena of balls behaving differently than expected because of chalk is often referred to as skid. If you do a half ball hit or less, aka half the cue ball covers the object ball on contact, the chances of the object ball experiencing skid, like in the example, are much greater. This change in angle is also known as throw, and if you want to find out more about how throw is affected by chalk smudges, you can check out this math that I totally didn't read or understand by Dr. Dave. Another common occurrence when skid happens is when you're hitting slow with a relatively straight shot. The cue ball will jump and lose its forward momentum and not roll forward as far as intended. But why does that even matter? The chances of the smudge being at the exact point of contact are so small.
Yes, but as the game progresses, the cue ball is going to get more and more smudges on it. That's going to increase the chances of you making a contact with the smudge, getting skid, missing, and ultimately losing the game.
Which isn't good if you're playing for a lot of money. If you want to win, you have to keep your balls clean. This is why when you watch a professional pool match, you'll see players have their cue ball cleaned throughout the game. And sometimes they'll even get the cue ball cleaned at a very inopportune time. Man, this one still hurts. And now, not only is chalk important, but so is the type of chalk.
Master chalk is the typical chalk you're going to find at your pool hall or your local bar that you get for free. However, this chalk leaves a lot of smudges. Don't believe me? I put it to the test.
Here, I shot 15 balls in a random order to get some action on the cue ball, so we can see how the cue ball looks after using Master Chalk.
Look at this cue ball. All right, I shot 15 balls and there's already a lot of smudges on the cue ball. That is a lot of opportunity for an unforced miss.
So what do? This is Town Chalk. And no, this video is not sponsored.
You're welcome for the free advertising, Tom.
In my honest opinion as a Tom customer, this chalk is relatively the same as Master Chalk performance-wise, meaning you can't add more spin just because you're using Town Chalk. They both enable the same max English. The place where it really shines is that it doesn't leave any smudges. And the only drawback is that it's $20 per piece of chalk, so you gotta make sure you don't lose it. Just like with the Master Chalk, I ran out 15 balls in a random order with the Town Chalk to see if there's actually no smudges left on the cue ball.
And now look at this cue ball. This is the cue ball that I shot with the Town Chalk, and it is completely clean. I shot 15 balls, and there's not a single smudge on it. Now that may not seem like a lot, but if you're in a tight match playing for a lot of money, you want any edge that you can get. You don't want to risk missing because of a smudge. You're going to want a clean ball.
As a side-by-side comparison, you can clearly see the difference in cue ball cleanliness.
But wait, there's more to this.
How can there be this much info on chalk?
A lot of people ask, what does chalk even do? Nobody ever asks, how is chalk doing?
If you go into a pool hall, you've probably seen a bunch of chalk that look like this. Or this. Or even worse. This. Ugh. People often see that aesthetically pleasing looking hole and think, I gotta stick my tip in that hole.
And they'd be wrong. The chalk never asked for that. Warning, this next part is graphic.
Oh, God, jeez, no! Oh, man, I'm so sorry to show you this. Jeez, I can't watch anymore.
And there are a few reasons why you don't want to do this. First, chalking this way doesn't get chalk on the entire Q-tip.
You will only chalk the center of the Q-tip, but as discussed earlier, it's the edges of the tip that are the things that hit the cue ball and that need to have the grip. If the edges of the cue aren't chalked and you try to add English or spin, it's not going to end well. Let's see a miscue in...
Second, it puts a hole in the chalk, using up the chalk way quicker. And third, maybe it's not so important, but when you chalk this way, the chalk falls down onto your shaft and it gets dirty, but more importantly, it prevents you from having a nice smooth stroke.
So how the heck am I supposed to chalk?
What you want to do is you want to paint it on, like Bob Ross. Cover all the edges, make little grippy friends. This lets you cover the entire Q-tip with chalk, and it also makes the chalk last way longer. Chalk is free, but not if you're using $20 Town Chalk.
Wow, what else is there?
Nope, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just chalk after all. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something and had fun along the way.